Say what you will about me and mine, but we've got a life that works for us. And outsiders like you aren't going to get it. We learned that a long time ago, trying to bring new blood into the fold. You make the pitch, and if it doesn't land, you move on. It's not worth trying to boil all this complexity down into a spoonful of syrupy knowledge so that we can, here comes the choo-choo train, ah-woo, ah-woo, and werewolves of London knew our truth. No. Not on me to do that. Not on you, honestly. Hey, I gotta take some ownership. I gotta steal a loaf of bread to feed my farthest friend. It's Pluto. Not to name drop, but we used to talk on the internet. Still do sometimes, but these days it's in person most often. I get in my slimy airplane and pyrojet my way to the outer bounds of the solar system. Pluto doesn't need spoons. He's a carafe and a chalice and a glorious grail. Pluto is the true savior. But he's also having a rough go of it these days. He's covered in ants. I learned that when I hacked the French newspapers. All the secret articles that are there for the hackers, the rebels, the intellectual underground. Just says, ants, 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 Pluto's covered in ants. I hadn't heard from Pluto in a bit. You know, we'd both been busy. It wasn't like there was a falling out or anything, but I read this on Le Monde and then verified it in Le Parisien. So, I got on the horn, on the telehorn, on the digital cyber range, and I boiled up a cup of, hey, Pluto, how's it going? And Pluto just responded in these short, terse sentences. I knew something was up. So I got my slime license and flew out there and confirmed, there's ants. I'm like, Pluto, you know you can reach out when you've got stuff going on. Pluto says, I don't like to be a burden. I'm like, how about you burden yourself this? And I chucked bread at him, and he's like, I can't have this. It's so expensive. I'm like, you don't get Earth money, dude. He's like, it costs 5 whole of a thing. I say, yeah, dollars. They're not much. He says, but 5 of them, though? This is the one with the seeds in it. That might bump us up to... We might be at 5 without even rounding. I'm like, I stole it. He says, what stole? I'm like, it's when you take something you're not supposed to take. Why aren't you supposed... Did your dietitian tell you to stay away from seedy bread? I'm like, no, I'm a seedy individual. Wink, wink. And Pluto giggled because he thinks eyeballs are funny. So the winking really does it for him. I'm like, I took it. They don't know that I took it. He asks, are you supposed to do that? I say, obviously not. He says, but you did it. I say, yeah. He says, is this about eyeballs again? I say, no, it's not. You can do that without eyeballs. I'm pretty sure there are blind thieves. He's like, so how much did this cost you? I'm not following. I say, $0. He whistles and says, hey, ants, have at it. And then the ants stopped chewing on him, ate bread instead. So now, couple times a week, I make the bread runs. It's so easy. The whole thing about poverty with the Aladdin and your Les Miserables is they try and sell you on this idea that stealing a loaf of bread is a big deal. It is not. All you need is one thick leg and one thin leg. Go to the bread aisle, stuff bread down your pants, and all of a sudden your legs look right. Honestly, when I don't do this, that's when they think I'm stealing. They're like, you are clearly a thin-legged man smuggling kielbasa down one pant leg. I'm like, that's not That's not it. It wasn't that last week. It isn't that this week. How have you people not put up like a sign in the back yet explaining my whole deal? They're like, we're gonna have to pat you down. I'm like, I know you're gonna have to pat me down. This is how it goes every single time. All right, pat the leg. And they pat the leg. They're like, this is odd. I say, oh, really? What's odd? Explain me to me. And they're like, this is just leg. I go, no kidding. Grocery trips take about 3.5 hours because they have to bring in somebody from the nearby urgent care clinic. They're like, it is our duty to make sure you don't pass away on premises. This leg is obvious, like you lost your leg a while ago and this is just one gnarly ass tumor. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm malformed. You're just gonna have to take my word for this. They're like, we'll take a doctor's word for it. And then instead of a doctor, they get somebody who's like half a doctor. Could have gone into private practice, could have hooked up with one of the local hospitals, but instead they went, no. Busy people need casual medical pseudo-care. I am going to get that empty storefront in the food court. You'll stroll through like my nose hurts and I'll put a band-aid on it and say, maybe try the ER. This is a business model now, I've decided. Well, this dude knows me on a first-name basis. And you would think, drive-through medical care, he'd be like, yeah, it's the same leg, you're good to go. No. This is a thorough individual. Wants to make sure. Look, malpractice suits are a very real thing. And that's a suit he doesn't want to be wearing. He's going to stick with his flannel blazer, thank you very much, and the polyester pants that help him look like a real slick cat when he goes out to the retro clubs and hits on all the disco mamas, pointing up toward the colored lights and saying, see those? I made those, baby. And they know he's lying, but they're still impressed, 'cause the gall it takes to tell such an obvious lie. Oh, can't help but notice you're wearing Adidas. Did you know that I am that? And Disco Mama's like, what do you mean, sugar? And he says, I'm the shoes. And she thinks, wow, the confidence on this man. And then they bone the hell down. No regrets on either side. Wake up in the morning, shake hands, and go their separate ways. Might occasionally cross paths at the club again, wink at one another, and then she hooks him up with Disco Auntie. And he says, hey there, Disco Auntie. How's it swangin'? And she says, oh, it's swangin' like a chandelier. And he says, oh, funny thing about chandeliers, I used to have a gig designing those. You know, the ones with all the fancy crystal? That was my idea. Up until that point, they had just been using matchsticks and mayonnaise. She's like, wow, you took mayonnaise out of the ceiling? He says, I took mayonnaise out of the ceiling. I was the first one to think of putting it on sandwiches, too. Up until then, it was only for light fixtures. And she's like, oh, my goodness, I hate to impose, but would you mind sleeping with me? He's like, for you, anything. And this life of endless partying and festivals is one that suits him nicely. He has decided that where others live for, I don't know, their art or to make the world a better place, or maybe it's a constant power struggle. They want to feel like they're in charge, so they will cut every throat that stands between them and the neck at the end of the line. Cut that one too and take its place. Well, he's decided, how about fun? What if that were my thing? What about fun? This job, slapping band-aids on noses and massaging one man's big leg, it's not too huge a demand on my time. I could maybe take some of this spare energy and make love to ladies who enjoy old music. And so, With that in his heart, he finishes squeezing up my leg and says, "Still not cancer," and then heads out to the Spangly Circladex. That's the name of the club, the Spangly Circladex. I almost said Circadex. That is a very different club. And he just dances, has a couple drinks, gets some bar food, and then finds him a stone-cold fox. Tells a couple transparent lies. "Oh, hey, you ever heard of teeth? Yeah, I fronted the venture capital for that." And then, where it goes from there? I don't know. I try to keep these conversations short because I've got other things to do. So now I just steal the bread, shove it down the other leg, and they're like, "Oh, sir, thank goodness, your limbs have normalized." And I'm like, "Yes, my limbs have normalized. May I go now?" And they ask, "Well, what are you purchasing?" I say, "Nothing. I just wanted a pleasant stroll with my newly functional legs. Good day." And they're like, "Ah, good on you, buddy." Meanwhile, the crinkle of the plastic on the loaves as I walk out of the store, and they're like, "Oh, must just be the skin reforming. What a nice guy." Am I ever going to be the one at the club throwing down on all the disco mamas, disco great aunties, disco seventh cousins 12 times removed? It's probably not going to be me. I got other pursuits. And I know you're not going to understand it. But me and mine, my chosen family, we got our own thing going on. We feed the ants on Pluto, and we enjoy each other's company. So, as you stand there looking at me here today, like there is something a lot wronger with me than the leg, I'm going to just tell you, go about your day and have a nice one of it. I'm going to go about mine.